morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Josh McKelvin. He was the first candidate to officially announce his run in the first CD, but now he's dropping his Democratic Party affiliation in favor of running as an independent. Question is, how will Sean O'Connor muster the support to beat two major party candidates? First guest this morning. Sean, good to see you.
Great to see you, Josh.
So yeah, this is going to surprise a lot of people. How did you arrive at this decision?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I got into this campaign because I cared about the minimum wage. I'm going to work for the minimum wage when I'm in Congress and donate the rest to charity, even though there will be more than 100 members wealthier than I, according to the financial disclosures. I got into this because our country has serious problems when it comes to health care and education and the national debt. And I want to solve those problems. And I believe my business background will allow me to solve those problems successfully. And I think as an independent, I'll be able to take my message straight to the people, and they'll be able to make the best choice for New Hampshire.
Did you feel like you were handcuffed to some degree with running as a Democrat?
Well, I think that the Democratic Party needs to be democratic, and quite frankly, I felt as though that process wasn't playing out. Carol Shea Porter had repeatedly refused to debate me, not only to me, but to media outlets and things like that. And so if we weren't going to have debates, I thought that that was not sort of consistent with the democratic process. And I wasn't invited to speak at the state convention, which all Democratic candidates are. And so I felt that, I should just take my message straight to the people. We've got a lot of support. And so, I spoke to my key supporters over the last couple of weeks, and we evaluated that decision and decided that this was the best way to go.
And I know that there's a lawsuit pending, but how much do you feel, and you kind of just touched on it, that you were being boxed out by the Democratic Party? Do you feel like they had already chosen their nominee for the first CD?
Well, as you know, I endorse Bernie Sanders, and I think, the appeal of Bernie Sanders, and quite frankly of Donald Trump, is that they understand that the system is rigged in many ways in favor of certain people and not others. I have no interest in talking about pending litigation. I'm going to leave that to my attorneys. But when it comes to this process, I do feel that, the party was picking favorites, and that's not I don't think that's what the people of New Hampshire care about. They want to know who's going to solve the real bread and butter issues that are affecting them at the kitchen table. We can't raise taxes on the working and the middle class. We need to get them relief through, better student loan programs, through universal health care. And so I think those are the issues people care about, and they want to know who's going to get to Washington and who's going to solve those problems. And, I am going to caucus with whomever is in the majority. So if it's the Republicans, I'm going to caucus with the Republicans. If it's the Democrats, I'm going to caucus with the Democrats. Why? Because that's what's best for New Hampshire. That's what's going to get my 10 bills that I have been rolling out onto the floor of the House. That's what's going to get me the best committee assignments, the most committee assignments to best serve the people of New Hampshire. I've always been in this because I believe that I could best serve the people.
And what issues, in terms of messaging or philosophy, does this free you up on without being locked into the Democratic platform?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this allows me to talk a lot more about my business experience. I built a company from my kitchen table with $5,000 in savings, and I built that into a multi-million-dollar company that served thousands and thousands of students around the country and around the world and helped them get into and afford college. And I think I'll be able to talk a lot more about my business experience and really focus on that. I've received a lot of support from the small business community. Part of the reason that I decided to go independent is if you review my FEC filings, you'll see significant donations from Republicans, from Democrats, from independents alike. And in our polling, it was showing that I had positive favorability with all three groups. And so, I really believe that at the end of the day, the people are going to choose the candidate who's going to best serve them, regardless of party politics. I really think we've seen in this cycle, party politics, people are tired of it. They want solutions to problems.
Yeah, and how much of what we're seeing at the national level and this appetite for anything but the status quo played into your decision making? And when did you start thinking about, well, you know what, maybe dropping the D for my name is a good idea?
Yeah, obviously, I was always my own person, right? I was not ever a party insider, so I was a Democrat just because I agreed with the Democratic Party on certain issues that were important to me. But some of those issues, fortunately, like same-sex marriage, have pretty much been resolved. They're completely resolved here. They've been resolved nationally through the Supreme Court. So about a month ago, I started, mulling over this idea. And then as things started happening and I started seeing how things were playing out and what my real opportunities for a fair primary were, I realized that, being an independent was really who I was. And, I think we have a great independent senator from Vermont, who I was proud to endorse. There's a great independent senator from Maine. New England has a long tradition of this. Joe Lieberman won as an independent in Connecticut. So I think it's time for New Hampshire to, to join that club and to elect its first independent.
Let me, I'll talk talk to you about Bernie Sanders in just a moment, but first, how are you going to win this thing? What was the response from your core support from when you first announced? You were the first one to announce in the first CD. When you called them up and said, look, I'm going to make this move and run as an independent, was that a difficult call to make? Did you have to sell it, or was it embraced?
No, this was embraced by everyone. I have not lost a single endorsement. Obviously, until now, I only had endorsements on the Democratic side, but none of those.
You're just now telling people publicly.
Yeah, no, but I've told all of those endorsers individually in advance of this, and I didn't lose a single endorsement over this. I talked to those who had, contributed substantially, those who had put in a lot of long hours of volunteering, and talked to, all of my core supporters before I decided to make this decision to file on Friday. They were all behind this idea and believe that, at the end of the day, they think that I am the best person to solve the really grave problems that we face, and that, party politics don't matter in that, and we need to get away from the party politics and focus on the issues that people care about.
Reality is, though, there's going to be some within the Democratic Party that are going to feel a little rankled, if not betrayed, by this to a certain degree. How do you win? How do you navigate your way through two major party candidates?
Yeah, well, I think that there's going to be a wide open space here. I think that whoever the Republican nominee is, and I think it could be Frank Ginta, it could be Rich Eshoo, who knows. Both of them are quite conservative socially. I'm obviously much more liberal socially, so I support a woman's right to choose. I support women's health care. I support same-sex marriage. So I think there's going to be a lot of room. I support common sense gun safety measures. I think there's going to be a lot of support with moderate Republicans who would have supported Dan Innes, for example, in the primary in 2014. And then I think that there will be a lot of independents. I poll extremely well with independents, and they are 40% of the district. They're a plurality. And then I think there are a number of Democrats who, who think that Carol, served with distinction, but that it's time for a new voice, it's time for a new vision, it's time for someone else to go forward. And I think that I will maintain their support as well.
And in which areas would you point to and say, this is something that I could bring over, moderate Republicans? You touched on a little bit, but is it your fiscal knowledge? Obviously, fiscal conservatism is something that's big within the Republican Party. You think your message will appeal to some of those more moderate voters?
Yeah, I think if you look, for example, I had tax credits or have tax credits in my in my minimum wage plan for small businesses, because as a former small business owner, I know that raising the minimum wage, while it's the right thing to do and long-term will stimulate the economy, that it will affect our small businesses here in New Hampshire, and my tax credit would benefit 96%, and that's something I had in there even when I had a D before or after my name. And so I think that I will be able to speak about financial responsibility. I don't think I'm fiscally conservative. I don't want to privatize Social Security or Medicare. I think those would be huge mistakes. I think those programs have been of great benefit to tens of millions of senior citizens.
But you're also not looking to expand benefits within Social Security.
I think that, we have to have a better COLA system for Social Security. So, my plan for Social Security is, first, let's work to get, millennials are now the largest generation. Let's get them into the jobs that they deserve to have. A lot of them are underemployed, so let's work on that. Then let's have more legal immigration. I see through my business, I used to see tons of people who would get their PhDs, who wanted to start businesses here and couldn't get the visa to stay. So let's increase legal immigration among young people who want to start businesses and build businesses in this country, so we increase contributions to Social Security. And then if we need to, I do support, as a next step, raising the tax cap, because I do think that the wealthier can pay a little bit more. Sure. And then I want to make sure that the COLA that we increase Social Security on is consistent with what consumers over 65 buy. So right now it includes electronics, and consumers are not the, 65-year-old senior citizens are not the largest consumers of electronics. They care more about the cost of food, prescription drugs, gasoline. And so I want to make sure that those COLA increases, which would probably be higher, fit what people are actually buying.
Time is flying. I want to get you on a couple of different things. Governor Maggie Hassan at one point called for a pause, hit the pause button when it came to bringing Syrian refugees into New Hampshire. It's made its way into the governor's race. A lot of people are talking about it right now. I'm just curious, what do you think? Are you sold that the safeguards are in place to bring in refugees from these war-torn areas? Yeah,
I'm sold. To get in as a Syrian refugee, you go through about 2 years of evaluation, 10 in-person interviews. So I I am convinced that it's okay to allow Syrian refugees in as long as we are very, very careful. I care deeply about national security. I worked for a moderate Republican in Congress back right after college and at the end of college in 1999 and the early 2000s, and he also cared a lot about national security, and I think that I will bring that expertise as well. That was what my background was in undergrad.
You got about a minute to go. We'll have you back in, dig deeper into the issues, but let's talk about Hillary Clinton. She is the presumptive nominee of the party. A lot of debate about the superdelegates and the process in which this has arrived there. Did part of your decision have something to do with the idea that Hillary Clinton, and we spent so much time talking about Donald Trump, that Hillary Clinton is a flawed candidate at the top of the ticket?
Well, I'm not going to endorse in the presidential race. I have my own, my own race to focus on. I obviously supported Bernie Sanders because I didn't agree with him on every policy point, though I agree with him on a lot of them. But I felt that he was really communicating to people about the need for a new system, a change in the system, a shakeup to the system, which is exactly what my candidacy represents. I think that Donald Trump, I have real concerns about some of the comments that I know, Senator Ayotte has spoken out against as well. I share her concerns about Donald Trump's racist comments, but I intend to make no endorsement in the presidential race because I really think that people make a different decision for president than they do for their local congressperson.
Sean O'Connor running for Congress as an independent. Major move. Thanks for breaking the news here on our program.
Absolutely.
Best of luck to you moving
forward. Thank you.